All right, first things first, there is potential word of a ceasefire here, and it's a short article from Reuters. Mediators have passed Iran a proposal to de escalate the war with the U.S. that would offer a 10-day ceasefire to find ways to revive an interim deal reached last month, a senior Iranian official told Reuters on Monday. So, two sides to a ceasefire. Why might this be happening, and who does it benefit? The U.S. has soldiers killed in Jordan, and then also an exploding drone in Iraq, in northern Iraq, in the Kurdistan area. And Trump has said for every American troop that'll die, more Iranians will die. The usual kind of bravado from him. But we haven't seen true escalation in the past couple days. We've actually seen strikes kind of drop down. So, what does that mean? And is the U.S. planning something? And I think the answer is yes. So we have here the U.S. is loading up on equipment and bringing a lot of aircraft into the region. And a lot of those aircraft were actually in Part 1, Operation Epic Fury. So it appears the U.S. is preparing for a wider war. Does that mean a ground attack, trying to seize Karg or any of the islands? And is allowing a ceasefire here just the death of Iran, allowing America to basically regroup before they attack them further, which I think is likely the case. So I don't see the 10-day ceasefire directly benefiting Iran. And we've seen this with Israel a lot. They often just use the ceasefire as a moment to regroup and then attack harder. So if Iran's hurting, which they don't appear to be too much, of course they've taken some hits, but I still think they have a lot of their asymmetry involved. I mean, they've been able to take out U.S. troops with really precise strikes, even all the way in Jordan. But Iran does like to use the "we negotiated in good faith and see what the great Satan has done" line. They've, in a lot of their articles written in Iran, they mention how many times they've done talks. So they kind of like that as a weapon to their people to say, hey, we'll do a ceasefire, hey, we'll do a talk, and then knowing that the Americans will violate it, so they can say, see, you can't trust these guys. So maybe there's value there politically for Iran, but right now it just seems like a ploy that America can have a little bit of breathing room before they launch something far wider on Iran. Where the hell is Mojtaba Khamenei? And we do not know. So we've seen reports that he's not even in Iran. Now, a lot of that comes from Israeli media, so they want to put that out, that he's away in hiding and that he's not even there for his people. He could be, could not be in Iran, but I'm just suspicious of the source there. So one theory is he's not even in Iran. And then the second theory is he's very injured from strikes, and so he's having to heal up, and that could take a very long time. He could be in dire straits there. So he has not been seen in public since the death of his father. Even at the funerals that were all around the country, he did not show up. And of course, the second he does show up, he might be a candidate for assassination from the U.S. or Israel. But he's been in hiding and has to make a series of statements from his Twitter account and then his personal account. But he has things like, the great Satan, the criminal U.S. has now realized that the continuation of its trouble-free, domineering presence in the region is nothing but a naive fantasy. So he's been dropping a lot of these bangers throughout, and then saying that the U.S. will suffer unforgettable lessons. But regardless, we have not seen him, so we're not necessarily sure what that means, if it's actually him. I'm sure it is, but there's suspicions that he's not even the one controlling it. Also, here he turned down a meeting with Iraqi prime minister as well, so not meeting in person with people either, so that's unique. Another thing interesting is that Iraqchi implied on July 19th that a special committee within the Supreme National Security Council made important decisions on negotiating with the United States without the direct input of Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, which highlights the seemingly limited role that Mojtaba has played in regime decision-making over the past several months. So trying to figure out where he's at and how much control he actually has is unique. And I've also heard that he wasn't necessarily even next in line for Supreme Leader if his dad had lived out his life and they had made the next round of picks. His death kind of forced them into having that occur sooner and him be the guy. And then you've also seen IRGC groups throughout the country put out statements of belief in him, that we honor him and follow him. But it does seem like there was some command or maybe even some debate on, do we actually back this guy? And we have seen him be backed, but didn't show up at the funerals. not meeting with world leaders, nothing even on video, because even if he didn't want to be seen for assassination, he could still record a video. He hasn't done that either. So likely severely injured and recovering, and then he will pop up eventually. But of course, the Western propaganda angle is that he's not even ruling the country. He's not even in the country, and therefore everyone should rise up and support Israel in the US. But him not being around is providing a lot of intrigue. So hopefully we can find Mojtaba and see what's up with him. Hamas just announced the new head of their political bureau, and that is going to be Khalil Haya. And Hamas has been leaderless since Israel assassinated Sinwar in October of 2024, I believe. So Hamas has been governed by a leadership council until today. I think it's 5 guys, and they've made decisions kind of as a group. They voted, and he won by a single vote, getting the leadership position. So interested to see if that thin margin produces any internal issues. No idea. And he's been around the block. He's the real deal. He was Muslim Brotherhood in the early 80s and joined Hamas in 87. And so, of course, Israel has arrested him a bunch for participating in various Hamas activities. But as of late, he's been more of a negotiator. And he's even negotiated with Kushner and Witkoff. I'm sure that led to great things. But of course, Hamas is linked to the Axis of Resistance, is linked to Iran. That's a no-brainer. But there's at least examples of open lines of communication to the U.S. as well, which is important. Now, who knows now, since the Iran war came about, that was all prior, but he seems to be a bit of a statesman in that regard, and he's talked to several groups and nations around the world, so seems reasonable, seems pragmatic at least. But now being named officially, does that mean that Israel's going to take him out? And yeah, there's a great chance of that. This guy is a tragic story. In 2007, Israel did a strike on his home, killing his wife, 3 children, and 3 brothers. He lost a son in 2008 due to a strike. Lost another son, daughter-in-law, and grandson in 2014 from another Israeli airstrike. And then in 2025 and 2026 separately, Israel killed 2 more of his sons for a total of 4 dead sons at the hands of the Israelis. And it wasn't just family. This is the compound in Doha in Qatar where the Leadership Council was meeting, and Israel struck that, totally violated Qatar sovereignty and hit it. He survived that, but Israel is willing to go to extreme lengths to kill this guy, essentially. So we don't know what will come of this, but it is important that Hamas has went from a leadership council to a direct figurehead now, and then what that means in the wake of Iran war. And of course, is Israel going to get active? And the answer is probably yes. Next up, Iran targeted southern Jordan here in Aqaba, and they hit the airport, King Hussein International Airport here. But also what's interesting is this is very close to Israel. If you see right here, this is Israel all along here. And there were good videos of people at resorts in Israel seeing the smoke arise. So we're getting very close. We've seen a ton of strikes all throughout Jordan here in this ring. And of course, this is where a lot of the American air defenses are that protects Israel from Iran's ballistics. So it seems that Iran wants to target this area and knock out the air defenses, knock out the air bases, so maybe they can get to Israel. But very, very close to Israel here in this strike. And of course, this port. I think there was a World War I battle in Aqaba as well. So this little spot on the Red Sea is very important as well. But very close, and I think that's interesting. Are they trying to draw Israel in? I think they are trying to knock down the air defenses, but they're getting as close to that line as they can. So do they want Israel to join in? And of course, we've seen from Israeli media a ton that they want to join in, but Trump has actually held them back. You can see here the smoke rising from the airport. So that was notable because of how close it was directly to Israel. Then down south, we have Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis, announced a ban on Saudi Arabian shipping. So you can see right here in the Gulf of Aden, Saudi Arabia, all of their coastline here from the Suez Canal down to the Gulf of Aden should be blocked by the Houthis now, but we'll have to see. They like to talk a lot. We have to see how much action occurs. A Houthi military spokesperson said in a video statement that the maritime ban against Saudi Arabia will begin effective immediately, describing it as an equation of an eye for an eye, of course, to get back at the U.S. for shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. And the strait that's down there, Bab el-Mandeb, is responsible for about 12% of the world's trade. And if you add that to the Strait of Hormuz, now you're at like 32% or 35%. 100%. So this is a way for Iran to make the regional war broader and then punish anyone who helps or takes part in the American Strait of Hormuz blockade, which would, of course, be Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis and the Houthis have quite a history recently, particularly of some pretty brutal attacks. So now we have to see exactly right here. There were a few details on how it might work, but do they shoot missiles at Saudi flagged ships? How does this actually come to life? But it is an important play by Iran and the Houthis now to target Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And Saudi Arabia has stayed out of the Iran war directly. Of course, they support the US and they support Iran being tested here. They have not attacked Iran directly, even though Iran a couple days ago did fire some missiles or drones towards Saudi Arabia. But if Bab el-Mandeb gets shut down, and now the Saudis' money is being played with on both coasts, do they take a more overt support or role in the war against Iran? Next up, the U.S. hit a nuclear power plant called Darkovine, and if you can see here in this area, this is, I'd have to see when this imagery is, but there's not a lot going on here. It was under construction, but of course Iran got upset about that. You can see here Iran accuses U.S. of violating international law after a strike on the nuclear power plant. And in a statement, the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran said the U.S. targeted a symbol of the Iranian nation's dignity in its effort to achieve self-reliance. The terrorist and criminal U.S. regime, whose nature is nothing but bullying and lawlessness, carried out an aggressive and barbaric act in violation of international law. So that's the thought. If they hit some functional nuclear power plant, then of course that's not cool. But Iran also likes to fire things near these plants. And sometimes I'm suspicious of governments that are like, yeah, they decided to fire right next to it, that's why we hit it. But they actually do. And we'd have to see how much more advancement has been made on this property. But any of these type of fields here are great to launch things from or have your air defenses near. And that way, if the U.S. strikes the air defense near there, they can say that they were targeting a power plant. So that's part of the game on both Iran and America's part here. The IAEA said they had been to the site previously, and the agency said the facility was in very early stages of construction and contained no nuclear material when it was last inspected. And if you look at the map here, there isn't a lot going on. So likely this was a political or propaganda play by Iran to make it look like the U.S. was hitting power plants, and they were probably in bad faith. And the IRGC here was likely operating using this as a way to try to make America look bad. If America does hit a nuclear power plant, I will be the first to call it out, but this appears like a little bit of gamesmanship from Iran here. Not a lot going on. Next up, could we see an Iranian invasion of Kuwait? So some prominent Iranians have said things like Kuwait is considered one of Iran's principal options for a potential ground incursion aimed at seizing the 2 U.S. military bases located within the country. And also you've seen articles, U.S. invasion of Iran could trigger Iranian ground attacks on Kuwait or Bahrain. So one says that they could preempt and then just immediately go into Kuwait. The other are if the U.S. were to land over here on Karg Island or even further south in the Strait, this chain of islands, then that could push Iran to come in here and attack Kuwait. But what you'll see is there's a small little area here, and this is actually Iraq. So Iran and Kuwait don't actually touch here, but it's not a very large land gap from Iran over here to Kuwait. They could also come by boat as well, but they don't really need to because this area is pretty fascinating. So what we've got here is Iraq, Iran, and Kuwait, but you can see most of Iraq is a desert. So there's not a lot going on there. Most of the country is occurring in this area where there's actually fertile lands. And Iran has a ton of control here. So they have a ton of Shia groups, and you can see bottom here in this peach color that is actually aligned with the axis of resistance. They have power within the Iraqi government. These groups hold a lot of sway. So they could attack Kuwait without Iran proper attacking them and using them as proxies to attack Kuwait, because you can see Kuwait is down here, and then all the Iranian Shiite backed groups in Iraq could handle it. The IRI, the Islamic Resistance of Iraq. And like I said, they are involved with the government, meaning they get funding. So one day they're part of the Iraqi government, and then the other, they're doing the bidding of Iran. It's a very strange government system that they have going on there. I don't know how they're going to keep that up, or if the war in Iran ends up with Iraq going back into civil war. But all along the north here in this red, you see the Kurds, and that's who Iran's been attacking in Erbil and all of that. The U.S. backs the Kurds, and we would like the Kurds to do our dirty work. There were reports that the CIA was working directly with the Kurds prior to this to try to get them to invade Iran. This country is a nightmare, sectarian violence potential wise, and we have to see how that plays out. Will Iran attack Kuwait directly as Iran, or will they use their people in the IRI? Kuwait is a big thing to watch because the military bases of the U.S. and Iran's been attacking our missile systems and our air defenses, as well as our offensive ballistics out of this region. So Kuwait has been a major factor. Of course, it's a small country and easy to invade. That's why Iraq did it successfully. The U.S. defended and now basically de facto uses Kuwait as a base of operations. It can get really muddy in Iraq, and I don't hear Iraq talked about enough as a major player in this potentially becoming a regional war because they are so split up internally.